Are you ready, my friend? Because today, I'm gonna take you deep into a story that still gives everyone in Puerto Rico goosebumps. Imagine this: a single man, barely 29 years old, who held in his hands one of the hottest drug spots in the largest public housing project in the Caribbean. A guy who walked through Llorens Torres as if the devil himself asked him for permission to pass, who by day was Héctor el Father's personal security and by night was the absolute king of Street 4, who moved millions, who made police officers tremble, who put prices on heads, and who, when someone dared to touch him, made them disappear from the map until one February night, right on the Valdoriotti de Castro highway, in front of hundreds of witnesses, a burst of more than 50 gunshots reminded him that on the street nobody, absolutely nobody, is untouchable. Today, you are gonna learn the true story of Luis Rodriguez Olmo, better known as El Chacal de Jackal. You're gonna see how he rose from zero to having half of San Juan at his feet, how he earned enemies who swore to see him dead, how his own people mourned him like a hero, while others toasted as if it were New Year's Eve, and how, in the end, the street collected the highest bill there is. This isn't a movie, this isn't a tall tale. This happened here on our island barely 15 years ago, and there are still people who don't dare to speak about him out loud. So get comfortable, turn up the volume, and hold on tight. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and give a like. It all starts in the Luis Llorens Torres residential complex, the largest housing project in the Caribbean. 140 buildings, more than 30,000 souls, and one single spot that everyone wanted to control: Street 4. That's where the legend of Luis Rodriguez Olmo was born. A skinny, quiet kid who in 2008, at just 19 years old, was already neck-deep with the ONU, the organization that ruled a large part of the island at that time. He started like any other, running packages, watching corners, earning trust. But El Chacal had something different: a cool head and a very heavy hand. In less than 2 years, they handed him all of Street 4. And when I say all of it, I mean all of it. 24 hours, selling cocaine, crack, heroin, marijuana, and pills. Runners, sellers, hitmen, money launderers, they all reported to him. The drug spot moved so much money that luxury cars never stopped entering and leaving. People respected him, yes, but they were also terrified of him. If someone tried to be too clever, if someone talked too much or tried to steal from him, even if it was just $100, the response came fast. And without warning, stories were told in the hallways that people had disappeared, that he had ordered bodies to be dumped in the pits of Piñones, that even the municipal guards asked him for permission to pass through certain buildings. And as crazy as it sounds, he was also Héctor el Father's personal security during his final years on tour. By day he escorted the king of reggaeton, by night he was the king of the housing project. That double life made him even bigger. But power never comes alone. With power come enemies, and El Chacal had them by the dozens. Inside Llorens, he was already in an open war with Street 7 and with Las Malvinas, Street 20. Outside, he had a feud with a heavy hitter from Carolina named Dante. And it was precisely one of those feuds that started heating up the atmosphere until everything exploded. The mistake that put a price on his head, it was 2009, and Street 4 was at its peak. El Chacal was no longer just a drug spot leader. He was a money-making machine with a military structure. 3 top leaders, he was one. 14 confirmed hitmen, 6 supervisors, 21 shift owners, 12 runners, and more than 50 sellers. This wasn't a group of boys playing games, this was a criminal enterprise. And his favorite tactic was the most dangerous of all: robbing rival drug spots, taking their drugs at gunpoint, and then selling them on Street 4. 100% profit and dozens of enemies. Every robbery was a public slap in the face. It worked for a while, until they touched the wrong person's son. It is said that El Chacal ordered a hit on a Dominican man who was a heavy player in the business. The problem? That Dominican man was the son of a big boss with a lot of power and contacts even in the Dominican Republic. The response was immediate: a price on Chacal's head. It was no longer a war over drug spots, now it was personal. And when things get personal, there's no turning back. Meanwhile, the feds already had him in their sights. El Chacal was accumulating arrests, possession of modified weapons, attempted murder, conspiracy, but he always got out on bail or the cases fell apart. He seemed untouchable. Even the police themselves were careful when they entered the housing project. And so came the night of the 17th of February 2010. El Chacal was in Isla Verde, in front of the now defunct Fucus Club, on the Villa Mar Marginal Road. He He was in a white Nissan with two other people, Christopher Carlos Rubén Morales Encarnacion, 26 years old, and a 45-year-old man who is said to be his father. They were parked and talking when, suddenly, two cars approached at high speed. They rolled down the windows and the rain of bullets began. More than 50 shell casings were left on the pavement. El Jackal received most of them in his back while trying to take cover inside the car. All three died instantly. But before that fateful night, there was a detail that almost no one tells, and that marked the beginning of the end. Weeks before the murder, El Chacal had started moving differently. He no longer slept in Llorens every night. He stayed in safe houses in Carolina, in Condado, even in luxury hotels. His own hitman commented that he was acting paranoid, that he checked his rearview mirrors every 2 minutes, that he no longer trusted even his own shadow. They say he received several warnings, anonymous text messages, calls from blocked numbers, even a funeral wreath left in front of his mother's house with his name on it. He laughed in public, saying, "I don't know anyone anything," but in private, he already knew the clock was ticking. That's the hardest part. When you're at the top, you know exactly when the fall begins, and yet you stay sitting on the throne hoping it won't happen. But on the street, when they put a price on you, time runs out fast. And for El Jackal, that time ran out one February night in front of a place that doesn't even exist anymore. The night the king fell, on the 17th of February 2010, at about 10:30 at night, Valdoriotti de Castro Avenue turned into a hellscape. The white Nissan was parked in front of the Fucus Club on the Villa Mar Marginal Road in Isla Verde. Inside, El Jackal in the passenger seat, Christopher Carlos Rubén Morales Encarnacion driving, and the 45-year-old man in the back. The three were chatting, perhaps planning the night, perhaps talking business. Nobody knows. Suddenly, two vehicles approached at high speed, a gray Toyota Corolla and a black Honda Accord, according to witnesses. They positioned themselves one on each side, rolled down the windows, and the burst began. Forensics counted 57 9mm and 40 caliber shell casings on the pavement. The bullets pierced doors, glass, seats. El Chacal tried to cover himself by ducking, but most entered through his back and arms. Christopher was hit in the chest and head. The older man tried to get out through the back door, but he didn't even manage to open it. All three were left lifeless inside the car in less than 10 seconds. The hitmen didn't stay to see the result. They accelerated and disappeared down the avenue toward Carolina. The police arrived 15 minutes later. The scene was gruesome, blood everywhere, the smell of gunpowder still floating in the air, onlookers recording with cell phones from afar. Paramedics could only confirm what everyone already knew. All three were dead. In Llorens, the news traveled faster than light. Within half an hour, there were people crying on Street 4 and people opening beers on Street 7. WhatsApp exploded with messages. They took him. It was about time. Rest in peace. King, one less. The same photo of Chacal with the Puerto Rican flag in the background began to circulate with the phrase, Leyenda forever, legend forever. The wake was something that had never been seen on the island. The body arrived at the housing project in the early morning, and they held the wake in the community room of Building 52. From 3 in the morning until the burial, thousands of people filed through. Women with children in their arms, bandits with bulletproof vests under their shirts, grandmothers praying rosaries, young people recording everything with their cell phones. The shiny black coffin, white flowers everywhere, and on the wall a giant photo of Chacal with the phrase, "He who lives it is he who enjoys it." The day of the burial was even more intense. The hearse left the housing project escorted by more than 100 motorcycles, doing wheelies, cars with music at full blast, and hundreds of people walking behind. The police had to close the streets because the procession lasted almost 2 hours to the Villa Palmera cemetery. Right there, as they lowered the coffin, Hay que Vivirla by Héctor el Father played at full volume. Many started singing, others cried, others simply looked at the ground without saying a word. But while that was happening on one side of the housing project, in the buildings of Street 7, Street 20, and sectors of La Perla, there was an open party. Videos that still circulate in private groups show people dancing on rooftops, firing shots into the air and shouting, "The abuse is over!" Because for them, Chacal was no hero. He was the one who took their drug spots, who stole their drugs, the one who had ordered the hits on several of their friends, and exactly 1 month later, on the 25th of March 2010, the feds took advantage of that vacuum and delivered the final blow. At 5 in the morning, 600 agents entered in Black Hawk helicopters. With armored vehicles and the whole show, they woke up half the world with megaphones. FBI, hands up. They arrested 51 people that day, hitmen, runners, money launderers, even the lady who cooked for the night shifts. They only entered 39 of the 140 buildings. But the message was clear. Street 4, as Chacal knew it, no longer existed. Prosecutor Rosa Emilia Rodriguez gave the biggest press conference of the year. This organization generated more than $10 million in 4 years. They were responsible for 27 confirmed murders, violent robberies, and terror in the residential complex. They showed the confiscated weapons, AK-47 seconds with drum magazines, Glock pistols with chips, auto sears, sawed-off shotguns, all lined up on a table like trophies of war. And although the headlines screamed "End of the nightmare," those who lived there knew it was only the end of a chapter. If you are enjoying this video, remember to subscribe, because these stories hurt, but they must be told. Leave a comment and share so that the next kid thinking about getting into the drug spot sees this and says, "No thanks, I choose to leave." The vacuum that nobody could fill. After the mass arrest of the 25th of March 2010, Llorens Torres woke up as if its soul had been ripped out. The hallways that used to rumble with modified engines and loud music went silent. Children played again in the courts without their mothers having to shout at them to come inside because they're shooting. For the first time in years, many grandmothers were able to hang laundry on the porch without fear of a stray bullet piercing it. But that silence wasn't peace, it was a vacuum. Because when you knock down the one in charge, the power doesn't disappear, it gets divided. And in Llorens, that meant chaos, disguised as tranquility. The same hitmen who previously answered to Chacal now wanted their own peace. New names appeared that no one knew. El Meñor de la 15, Cachete, El Flaco Loco, each trying to grab what was left of Street 4. The drug spots were divided, prices went up, the quality of the drugs went down, and, of course, the settling of scores began. In less than a year, there were more than 15 deaths just inside the housing project due to turf wars that Chacal would have stopped previously with a single call. Because even if many hated him, he kept order. If two corners were heating up, he would arrive, sit them down, and tell them, "Nobody shoots here unless I say so, period." With him dead and most of his leaders in prison, no one had that authority. Even the residents themselves recognized it in low voices. This is worse than before. And there comes the irony. People who celebrated his death ended up mourning the absence of his heavy hand. A lady who lives in building 35 told me once, "I was terrified of Chacal, but with him, I knew that if my son arrived at 10 at night, he arrived alive. Now I don't know if he's coming back." That is the greatest contradiction of the housing projects. Sometimes the very person who terrifies you is the one who protects you. The feds declared victory, of course. They appeared in all the newspapers saying they had dismantled one of the most violent organizations in the history of Puerto Rico. But those who live there know the truth. They only cut off the visible head. Street 4 continued to operate smaller, more discreet, but operating. The shifts changed, the cars changed, even the hiding spots inside the apartments changed, and the money kept coming in. Years later, when Hector el Father was already retired and preaching, he said in an interview that Chacal's death still hurt him, that he considered him almost like a younger brother, that he tried to get him off the street several times, but Luis always told him, "This is my thing, Hector. I don't know how to do anything else." And that is the trap. When the street is the only thing you've known since you were a kid, getting out is harder than staying. Today, 15 years later, there is still a half-faded mural at the entrance of Street 4 that says, "El Chacal forever." The new kids don't touch it out of respect or for fear that the guy's spirit is still wandering around. Because in Llorens, legends don't fully die. The lesson nobody wants to learn. And here we are, my friend, at the end of the road. El Chacal started like any other kid from the project, playing ball in the court, going to school when he had to, dreaming of having a big car and a house outside the residential complex. But one day he made the decision that thousands make every year, grab the gun and get into the drug spot. And from that day on, there was no turning back, because the street gives to you fast. At 20 years old, he already had a gold chain, a BMW, women, respect, everything a kid sees in videos and wants. But it also collects from you fast. And the bill always comes with very high interest. In Chacal's case, the bill arrived with more than 50 bullets in the middle of the avenue, in front of hundreds of witnesses, and it was paid with the blood of 3 people. His own, that of a 26-year-old boy who was just beginning to live, and that of a father who was only accompanying his son. And the saddest part is that this story repeats itself like a broken record. Every year there's a new Chacal in some housing project. In Llorens, in the Canales, in Trujillo Alto, in Ponce, in Mayagüez. It doesn't matter. The script is the same. He rises fast, shines bright, dies young, and leaves a mother crying in front of a coffin. And meanwhile, the YouTube videos and the corridors keep glorifying that life as if it were the only way to get ahead. But I ask you, is that really the only way? Is there really no other path? Because from the housing projects have come doctors, lawyers, engineers, professional ball players, musicians, entrepreneurs, people who decided that their way out was not gonna be a gun, but a degree. People who understood that true respect is not earned through fear, but through work and dignity. El Jackal could have been one of them. He had intelligence, he had charisma, he had leadership. If he had put all of that into something legal, today he would be 50 years old with a big family, grandkids running through his house, and no one would be remembering him for a pool of blood in Isla Verde. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for having walked with me until the last second of this story that hurts but needs to be told over and over again. Today you met Luis Rodriguez Olmo El Chacal, a young man who held power, money, and respect in his hands like few others, and who in the blink of an eye lost it all. His life is the crudest reminder that on the street there are no eternal kings, only men who one day believe they are. If this story moves something inside you, I respectfully ask you to leave your comment. What did you feel upon learning about Chacal's end? Do you believe that one day the housing projects will have the peace that their children deserve? Every word of yours matters. I read them all and they often help me choose the next cases. Share this video with that friend, cousin, or nephew who still believes the street is the only path. Perhaps a story like this will open their eyes before it's too late. Activate the bell to receive a notification when I upload the next video, because even more intense, more real, and more necessary cases are coming than ever before. Take care of your life, take care of your loved ones, and always remember, the greatest victory is not having the street at your feet, it's reaching old age, with your family complete and a clear conscience. Big blessings, Corillo crew. See you very soon. Peace, respect, and much life ahead.